Okay, I'm recording. I'm gonna share my screen again with you. Sharing there. Okay, we have already covered this first document where I introduced the course. Also, I think it's important. Let's see how it goes with the recording, especially in terms of technology, in terms of, as we know, our broadband infrastructure is not great. So let's see how it goes. I think I said that to those of you attending last Tuesday's lecture, I give announcements during the lecture. So that's a way to reward those who actually attend lectures, right? I tend to receive a number of emails asking what was said during lectures, and usually I don't reply to those emails. So I think it's a good idea for you guys to attend lectures to know what's going on. So let me maximize this. So again, EKN EKT 795 research methods. I'm going to give you this the first set of notes. Where I'm going to give you some guidelines. So we are going to see a lot of things in this set of notes. And then after we do that, we are going to go into more detail into these guidelines. So let's set the tone. There is Brandolini's law on bullshit, folks, which says the amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is always an order of magnitude larger than it took to produce it. We live in the age of social media. We had an American president making a lot of use of social media. And we also live in the age of fake news and fake data and fake papers and fake science. And we have to learn how to refute all those things. And it is very easy. It's very cheap nowadays to bullshit, but it's much more expensive to refute bullshit. So it's our job here, my job here is really to make sure that not only that you are able to write a paper, a decent paper, and for you to write a decent paper, that means that you are minimizing bullshit. And also, in terms of education provided, it is important that when you see or hear bullshit, that you can spot bullshit. That will make you a better citizen. What are the objectives of this course? Well, you have to write a dissertation or a long paper, long essay, but we are going to call that paper. That's the technical word, paper from now on. And this paper is a device used to assess your ability to do a number of things, right? So first of all, folks, you have to define a feasible project. Meaning you have to find, and I put things in bold for a reason, okay? You have to find a topic which you fancy, right? You have to find a topic in economics and plan your schedule ahead. We have deadlines, especially now, right? We have serious deadlines. We all want you to graduate on time. You want to graduate on time, and we also want you to graduate on time. So deadlines are there for a reason, okay? For instance, I will not be bending deadlines, as we say in this country. So what else? We have to make use of a particular method. It can be time series, it can be cross-section, it can be panel data, it can be microeconometrics. It really depends on the data that you are using. If you are using data, time series data for South Africa to estimate or to test a particular hypothesis, then your data is going to be, your method is going to be based on time series. And therefore, you should be familiar with time series. And the same, if your data is, if you are testing a particular hypothesis which uses data from sub-Saharan Africa, which I think we are talking about here 45 countries. Over time, then you have a panel data. Therefore, you're using panel data methods. So therefore, also consequently, you must be familiar with the basics. You are honors students with the basics of panel data. And Matt in metrics, I think he will be doing that with you. It depends on your data dimension, really. And this I put between brackets. This last word really is an example of bullshit. So you don't need that word. And a lot of this course is going to be about telling you what not to write. Okay, so that word is an exaggeration. That is a totally useless word. Okay, what else? Well, you have to work with data, folks. Oops, 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 oops. Oops, 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 oops. I made a mistake here. Where is my stuff? No, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I pressed something that I shouldn't. So always be careful where you put your fingers. Huh? So work with data. You have to collect, you have to clean, and you have to format somehow a particular data set that you are going to be using to test a particular hypothesis. All those things are going to see in much more detail as we move along, right, folks? I'm just giving you a sort of overview of what is going to happen here. And also, you have to work independently. You are going to be allocated a supervisor. He or she is supposed to be there for you, but not all the time, right? You have to coordinate with your supervisor well, and you have to plan well because there are deadlines. Okay, and your supervisor will be giving you particular deadlines, but your supervisor is also given deadlines by the department. Okay, so there are deadlines. It's a sort of trickle-down mechanism of deadlines. And I will be giving you deadlines as well. What else? Well, you need to acquire, if you don't have them yet, you need to acquire some useful skills. Or before any questions about the objectives? Any questions? Oh, no questions. Okay, I'll share again. There we go. Useful skills. You must have or about to acquire some skills, right? And those are the skills that if you want to become a professional economist, those are the skills that you'll be using pretty much for the rest of your life, of your professional lives. You must know how to manage your data set, usually in Excel, but professional economists don't really use Excel. We use Stata or R or even EViews, but Stata much more so. The trouble here, folks, is that Stata is not software that you can acquire free of charge. And you cannot go to the lab on campus. So my understanding, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, my understanding is that Matt will be using R, which is a software that you can download, right? So, and if I just put there, but you probably already have R in your laptops or in your computers, but you can download R from that URL that I put there for you. So you just press there. Once you download my notes, you just press there and you go straight to R's website, and then you can download and install that in your computer. What else you need? You'll be typing your paper in Word, so you have to type your paper. If professional economists don't really use Word, but most people use. But if planning to do a master's or even a PhD, I advise you to learn LaTeX. LaTeX resources are available from my website. I'm going to show you my website in a few moments, what sort of resources you can get from there. LaTeX free of charge. You can download Technic Center from that URL that I put there. What is Technic Center? Technic Center is where you type your paper. And MikTeX, I'm going to show you later on. And MikTeX is the compiler of your document. So all those things are free of charge. Some of you coming from different departments, sometimes from stats or maths, you are already familiar with those softwares. Also, you must know how to manage data sources. Well, you are going to get data from a place. Hopefully, your supervisor will not give you a data set. Your supervisor will tell you what sort of data do you need, given your preferences in terms of hypothesis that you are planning to test. And then you go and you find your data set. You are going to download. Depending on the data, you can, that is data available from the World Bank, the IMF, the Penn World Table. All those things are free of charge. From the Gapminder. That is our wording data. I put that in bold because I think, in my view, that's one of the best data aggregators in the market as we speak, and everything is free of charge. I'm gonna show you the wording data briefly as we move along. If you are interested in political economy variables, there is the Polit4 and so many others, folks. Then I put there, check my website for links to a range of data sources. So I put the website, I put the link there for you. I'm going to show you the website as we move along. What else in terms of useful skills that you'll be acquiring this year? Well, folks, once you have your data set, you have to model your data, right? You have to do some analysis. You have to run some regressions and plot some graphs. And that is usually done in Stata, which is available from our lab on campus. This year is different, and also eViews and also R. So my understanding is that you will be using R this year. State and R tutorials are available from my website. So again, I'm going to show you from my web. My job here, folks, is not to teach you Stata, is not to teach you R, right? This is going to be done by Matthew, right? My job here is just to tell you really what sort of skills you'll be you'll need, and how to get information on those resources, right? The main job here really is to give you the format of your paper. I'm going to show you, nevertheless, as I said, I'm going to replicate a paper by myself using my code, and State and R, they are very similar to each other, okay? But I'm not going to be teaching Stata nor R as such, right? I'm gonna just show you briefly a code, my code, and we are going to replicate what was done in the past. What else? You must manage your references properly. There are softwares which softwares that help to manage our references, and Note is widely used, but it's not free of charge. And there is JabRef, right? JabRef is free of charge, so I'll be showing you JabRef briefly. You can download JabRef into your computer just following that link which is there. Let me stop here, and questions. Yes, I think you can. You can ask the question. You don't. Yeah, go. But you have to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Professor. I'm a PPE student, so I only have macroeconomics, and then I'm doing my paper in economics. So I don't have econometrics. Will this inhibit my writing ability in any way, or will your tutorials on your website suffice for getting me through the paper?
Okay, thanks. I have no idea. I know what PPE is because I was educated in the UK, but I have no idea. But I'm assuming that your supervisor will be based in your department, which is philosophy, right?
I get an economics supervisor for the paper, so.
Oh, okay. Then I think you have to make sure, you have to be clear. You have to make that clear to your prospective supervisor that you are a PPE student, and that probably because you guys are not doing metrics, are you?
I only have second year statistics. That's the only stats background I have.
Okay, but this year, do you guys have to do metrics this year in the department?
No, I only have the macroeconomics module.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then probably you are going to not necessarily, for you to write a paper in economics, you don't have to necessarily to run regressions or use econometrics. But probably your supervisor will ask you to download some data sets, a data set, and use the data in a more descriptive way using stats that you have done. So you can probably calculate the descriptives and put some graphs together to get an insight of what the data is telling. That's my hunch. Okay. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you very much, Prof.
Okay, thank you. Folks, any other question? But I think for the PPE students, it's important that you make that clear to your supervisors. Make that clear. Any other question, folks, up to this point? Okay, let's move on. Let me share the screen again. Okay, folks, the first thing I said in terms of what is being assessed here, right, was that you have to find a topic, right? And so how do you find a topic that you fancy? What are the conditions and preconditions for finding a good topic? So when choosing a topic that is important, right, and new, it's something that is probably relevant, but it must be new, right? And that you are really interested in. That's why I said you should fancy the topic because you'll be working on this for quite some time. Okay, so if you choose a topic that you don't really like just because you think it's an easy topic, you're shooting your own foot. Okay, so you have to find something that is important, relevant, and ideally new in the literature, and something that you are really interested in. Okay. However, you have to find a balance, right, between importance, novelty, and feasibility. You have to avoid corner solutions. More specifically, for empirical papers, feasibility is about data availability. Can you get the first question you must in terms of data? Can you get the data set easily? Is the data set freely available? Is the data set easily downloadable from the web, from a particular data aggregator? Recall you have deadlines. So make sure that you have in mind the point of data availability. It is important. Okay. So for instance, last Tuesday, we were discussing a couple of papers on robots, and there is data on robot adoption, but that data is not available. Well, it is available, but you have to pay for that data. Okay, and that data set is not cheap. Okay, so that you can do something on robots, but you don't have a lot of time. There are deadlines, there are constraints this year because of the pandemic, and the data, although available, it's not free of charge. Okay, so always make sure that the data is available. There are lots of data sets available, free of charge, easily downloadable. So make sure that your data is one of those. Okay, you have deadlines. Okay, if you are interested in a particular topic, for instance, randomly speaking, institutions and economic growth, when thinking of a topic, what are the main 3 or 4, and 3 or 4 are in bold, because I mean 3 or 4 papers in your topic, right? We are not talking about here, folks, 40 papers or 400 papers in your topic. No, we don't have time for that, and that's not how we do science anyway, right? You have to find out what are the main 3 or 4 papers in your subject, in your topic. Not only that, and who are the 3 or 4 leaders in that particular topic? Who are the 3 or 4 main economists writing and working in that particular topic? Is it a guy at the MIT? Right? Is it a guy at Harvard? Is it a guy at the LSE? Or is it a person in a different place? Okay. Always the technological frontier is in the United States, is in the UK, is in continental Europe. So you have to probably find someone in a top university working on the topic that you are interested in. Okay. The job here is to make sure that our students get closer and closer to the technological frontier, to the intellectual and scientific technological frontier. For you to find the main 3 or 4 papers and leaders in your topic, you must know what the 3 or 4 top journals in your topic are. So for instance, last Tuesday, we saw a couple of papers. One was published in American Economic Review, which, yes, is a top 5 journal in economics. It is a top 5, right? American Economic Review is a top 5 journal. And the second paper that we saw last Tuesday was published in the Review of Economics and Statistics, which is also a top 5 journal in economics. Okay, so as we move along, I'm going to show you the rankings of not only of economists, of journals, of papers, of everything that is available, so that you can make your mind up. As with more information you have, better choices you will be able to make. So you must know what the 3 or 4 top journals in your topic are. All those 3 or 4 papers, leaders, and journals are correlated in bold. Okay, the 3 or 4 top guys, they publish in the 3 or 4 top journals. All those things are correlated. What else? When reading the 3 or 4 top papers written by the 3 or 4 leaders in the topic and published in the 3 or 4 top journals, take a look at the research question. What is the research question? This is an important skill, folks. When you do a literature review, that's what you have to write about. It's the research question of the paper. It's the research question of your paper at some point. The sort of data that they use, the methods that they use, and the results. And usually is bullshit, right? No, all the time this information is in the abstract. Okay, we saw a couple of papers last Tuesday, and I showed you one of the papers had an abstract, and all the information you needed to know about the paper was contained in the abstract. The research question, what the paper is about, data and methods, how is that you do things, and results, what is that you find. Those are it says 4 here, but in fact it's 3. Those are the 3 things that you have to learn about a paper. And the abstract, good abstracts contain all that sort of information. Okay. Still on finding a topic, reading the 3 or 4 top papers written by the 3 or 4 leaders and publishing the 3 or 4 top journals also helps you to find other papers. How come, folks? Well, all papers have brief literature reviews. Brief literature reviews is in bold because your paper will also have a brief literature review. Okay. Papers have brief literature reviews. Because the whole point of this exercise is for you to show what is that you can offer. The whole point is for you guys to do your stuff and not just to review what has already been done. Check recent surveys of the literature in the Journal of Economic Literature, JEL, and Journal of Economic Perspectives, the JEP. Those are 2 journals of the American Economic Association. The American Economic Association is the main association in our profession. Also, there is the Royal Economic Society, which is an important association or society in our profession. The European Economic Association is also an important society, and the Econometric Society. All those societies, they have websites, they have their own journals, and they are important bodies in our profession. And also on the top, just from the top of my head now, the American Economic Association also has a code of conduct of how we economists should behave ourselves in academia, in government, in private companies, and so on and so forth. I think it's worth taking a look at the code of conduct. What else? So all these journals and societies are excellent sources for topics because they have their own journals, and their journals are top journals in our profession. And if you go there, and we're going to be visiting those websites in a few moments. So if you go there and you take a look at the latest issue of a particular journal, let's say AER, you'll be seeing what sort of papers or what sort of topics are of interest to those journals. Okay. Also, folks, the NBR stands for National Bureau of Economic Research. It's a Bureau of Economic Research in the United States. They also have their working paper series. It is the best working paper series in the whole world. The IMF and the World Bank, they also have their own working paper series. Usually, those are good papers, which will end up being published in top journals in our profession. Okay, so those are also places for you to go and visit, check their working paper series, see what is being published in their working paper series, because eventually those working papers will become published papers in the top journals of our profession. So those places are good places for you to look for topics. Okay. In a nutshell, what is the frontier in your topic? Okay. I remember last Tuesday, someone asked a question whether the macro course was a research course. What you guys must understand is that Everything that is in textbooks nowadays, they were papers at some point, right? When you go to a textbook and you study the Solow model or the Romer model, right? Solow, he wrote a paper, which a couple of fundamental papers back in the 1950s. And because those papers were so important, that material became part of textbooks, okay? The same with Romer. Romer wrote a couple of fundamental papers in economic growth or in R&D. And those papers, they were so important, they became important, and eventually that material became part of textbooks. That's how things are done. So everything in textbooks, they were papers at some point, okay? Right. Bear in mind though, your paper is supposed to be normal science. Normal science, say, that is to say, that say is also unnecessary, right? It's bullshit. If someone, one of the 3 or 4 leaders has written a paper in your topic using a large cross-country data set and dynamic panel data, you can use time series instead, right? So if something has already been done, published in a top journal using cross-country data, maybe you find that particular topic interesting, and you had this idea that perhaps you can replicate that sort of study for South Africa, which is one country. So that will give you a different sort of data set and therefore a different methodology. So for one, if you have information for one country, that is a time series. That's a national time series, and you'll be using time series method. Or you can also use maybe one of the 3 or 4 leaders in your subject has published a paper studying a particular subject using a bunch of countries during a particular time period. Well, maybe you have data for a different time period that will also be acceptable for a paper and for a topic. So you can have different samples, different time periods, maybe, but the topic is the same, but the context is different. Okay. Okay. So still on finding a topic, and then we can I'll stop sharing again. So this is a woodcut. This woodcut here presents us with at least 4 research topics, right? And these are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? And the person who did this is here, huh? His name is here. It's his initials are here, AD, right? And this particular copy, because it's a woodcut, so it can be reproduced almost forever, indefinitely. And this one is at Princeton University Art Museum. So when you look at that woodcut, that picture, I'm saying there are at least 4 research topics there. Can you tell me one research topic that is coming from that woodcut? Hmm? Okay, someone put here cultural significance of the 4 horsemen in the 15th century. So can you tell me what the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse actually represent? The first one. Shall I share again? Famine, very good. So one is famine. So there is poverty in the world, food security. So that's a topic in economics. What else? Is there one which is perhaps pestilence or disease or COVID-19? Is there one like this? I need a yes or no, folks. No idea? So there is death or mortality there. This one is the empty scales, it's famine. This one is what? This one with this one is what? Remind me, this one is conflict, war. And this one is what? This one is what? Remind me. So, folks, there are plenty of, there are at least 4. Each horseman represents a particular topic, which can be pursued as a compelling topic in development macroeconomics nowadays. So you don't find topics only in particular places. You can find topics everywhere. There are plenty of topics in our society. There are lots of things happening as we speak. That we have a pandemic. We have fight for resources for vaccines. That's a compelling topic. Fight for resources is a topic in economics. Vaccines, technology, R&D, why some countries were able to come up with particular vaccines or R&D and others didn't. Is it because they invest more in R&D than other societies? Well, probably you have seen this before. I'm sure you have seen, some of you who studied at Pretoria, economics at Pretoria, you did a course called EKN 325 with someone who was a former PhD student of mine. And she covered with you Solow and Romer, but the important point here is probably Romer, because he talks a lot about research and development, and the vaccines were very much about research and development. How some societies managed to come up with a lot of research development so that vaccines became available, right? So there are lots of topics out there. South Africa, we're going to see some of those. COVID-19, we're going to see automation. We are seeing state capacity. Every time, I don't know how old you guys are, but every time I have to go to the traffic department, I spend hours in there. Every time I need to go to SARS, I spend hours in there. So probably there isn't too much state capacity in this country, and so on and so forth. Okay, folks, questions about finding a topic? Obviously, needless to say, with respect to data, does the department have a Bloomberg terminal? I guess it does. I think so, but we cannot go there, right? Yeah, it's going to be a difficult year. We have to adapt. But as I said, I'm going to show you some data aggregators which might do the trick. Okay. More questions about finding, or about data or topic, or about anything really? All clear? Guys, let me see how we are doing here in terms of the notes.
I have a question.
Sure.
I just want to find like guidance in terms of like the topic, right? So say I want to investigate like, you'll tell me also if it's not relevant or if it's just like, no, what are you thinking? Like if I want to investigate the relationship between the decision for women who have been, let me say, out of the workforce, but are educated in deciding to divorce, say, their spouses. So like, if like there's so many ideas about, I'm trying to see if like, what is the topic then? What, like, how do you then select the relevant topic if you have like something so like, I don't know, broad, I don't know, like, I don't know, I have a difficulty just getting to the topic. I just know what I want to look at.
I think in this case, I think it's I think these are the sort of research questions which people are asking. For instance, recently, because of the pandemic, I don't know whether something has already been done, which is good, right? Maybe there is a window of opportunity there. But because of the pandemic, a lot of people stayed at home, and maybe that has had an effect on divorce, right? Because now people have to actually spend more time together, and you know what I mean, right?
Yes.
So I think that is possible, actually, and I think there is a whole body of literature dealing with the economics of family. For instance, if you go to, there is a Nobel laureate, Gary Becker, who did a lot on the economics of the family, and
who's that? Gary Becker.
Gary Becker,
sorry.
yeah. And decisions that people make in terms of fertility, how number of kids that they are going to have, or number of kids that they don't want to have, or decisions in terms of how to invest in the education of the offspring, decisions in terms of if they get married, who is going to work, who is going to look after the kids. So there is a whole body of interesting literature on that stuff. And and I'm sure for some countries there are surveys indicating the number of divorce. So for instance, I'm just from the top of my head, right? So for instance, you can try to do something. I think Jessie Naidu would be someone to talk about those things.
Yes, it's true.
So for instance, you can try to do a sort of before and after, before 2020 and after 2020. So the pandemic would be your external variation, right? It would be your shock, right? It's we are all being faced by.
To have it before and after. Okay, yes.
So I think it's doable, and I think Jessie would be someone to talk to.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. What else, folks? Okay. Folks, do you need a break?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's break for 5 minutes until 20 to 6. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, I will pause and stop recording here now. Okay, so I'm recording again. Questions, folks? All clear up to this point? Okay, I'll share my screen again. There we go. After finding a topic, and one thing that I highlighted a lot was the importance of finding the 3 or 4 top, getting to know what are the 3 or 4 top journals in economics, and or general journals, and also field journals. The 3 or 4 top economists working in your topic, the topic that you fancy. So the importance of learning from the best, right? That's essentially what education is about, isn't it? It's we always have to stand on the shoulders of giants, all of us. So 3 or 4 papers, the top 3 or 4 papers, top 3 or 4 leaders, top 3 or 4 journals, all those things are important, finding a topic. Now there is something which is essentially the counterfactual of all this, which is this topic of economists, journals, and predatory economists and predatory journals. So that's something that is prevalent in all sciences. There are something called predatory journals. So, but then the question is, but who are the top economists in your field? Right? How do we actually find out who are the top economists in your field or in the subject that you are interested in, right? So we have to take a look at what is REPAC? REPAC is Research Papers in Economics, has to say. And for that, there is a link there. Before we follow the link, there is a question because I heard something. Any question, any comment? All clear? Okay. So before we go there, and not only who are the top economists in your field, but also what are the top journals in economics, right? I already told you, I know which are the top journals in economics, but I've been doing economics for over 20 years, right? But I already told you 2 top journals in economics, 2 top 5. So you already know two of the top 5 journals in economics. One is American Economic Review, and the other one is the Review of Economics and Statistics, right? So we are going to see in a few moments which journals are good and which journals are not so good. And then what are these predatory journals? I should have put predatory in bold. Always have the bills list, right? It's a web page at hand, right? So there is a list of predatory publishers and predatory journals, right? So those, given the name, we should avoid because that's not science, right? At all. Everything published, everything published in a predatory journal, which is published by a predatory publisher, is not proper science. Okay, we have to avoid those things. Really. The same way that we avoid the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, we have to avoid the predatory journals, right? But again, putting the whole thing upside down, you are going to see it's a gigantic list of predatory publishers and predatory journals in all sorts of sciences, right? It's a gigantic list. Okay, so I was actually, when I was organizing these notes today, I was thinking, you see, it's much easier for you to learn what are the top journals in our subject than learning what are the crappy ones, because the crappy journals have a gigantic distribution, right? It's a gigantic distribution to the right. You have to avoid those things, like the same way that you avoid the 4 horsemen. And that is the bullshit detector. So the predatory journals are essentially bullshit, right? And they deserve the detector. Okay. Shall we take a look at the bills list for you to see the size of the list? Shall we take a look at it? Let me, yes or no? I need a yes or no. I need a yes or no.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. That's my website. Okay. And if you check my website here at the top, there is a tab called links. which in German means left, by the way. Links. So let's press links. Okay, hopefully we are going to links. Okay, there is a photo there. This photo, I took this photo in 2019 when I was visiting a scholar at the University of Oxford. It's close to Christchurch College. It's a nice bridge, which for me is a link. So I decided to put this photo there. And these links, I think there's a lot of resources there for you folks. Okay, for instance, on science. So there you can find videos, old videos by R.P. Feynman. Remember the physicist who got the Nobel Prize in 1965. So he talks about cargo cult science. You can go there straight. He talks about the scientific method. He talks about the difference between knowing and understanding. When you only do MCQs, you might well know, but probably you don't understand. Also, Feynman on teaching. Those are very short. Those are very short videos. And Feynman on honors, not honors degree, but on prizes. Some bibliographical resources where you can find papers. JSTOR is an aggregator of papers. That is the American Economic Association's Econolit. You find a lot of stuff there. Also, the gel codes. When you write your paper, I'm going to show you on the first page of your paper, you have to put the Journal of Economic Literature codes. So your subject, if you are doing growth has a code, right? If you are doing gender economics has a code, and so on and so forth. Those codes are important because with those codes, we can find external examiners for you. Okay. Then there is also a link to RePAC. I'm already clicking on RePAC because we're going to go to RePAC in a few moments. Google Scholar. You heard of Google Scholar, Universal Pretoria Library Service, predatory open access journals. So there is some information about these predatory journals that we've been talking about. And there is a list of suspicious journals and publishers choosing a journal for publication of an article. Let's press that stuff. Right. And then we go, folks, to Yale University Library. Right? Yale is an Ivy League American university. And in there, it says, choosing a journal for publication of an article, list of suspicious journals and publishers. But in your case, you have to choose a journal where to find a good journal, where to find a good paper. You don't want to find a paper which was published in a predatory journal. That's the whole point here. That's why I'm emphasizing here. You need to know about those journals, because if you base your dissertation, your paper, on a paper which was published in a predatory journal, you are not going to make it. And we don't want that to happen. Okay? At all. So in there, there is a link down here, folks, to the Bill's list. Bill's is he's a librarian in the US, and he put the list together, right? So let's press list of suspicious journals and publishers. That is the Bill's list, okay? And these are the list. This is the, I'm going to scroll down. This is the list of predatory publishers. Why predatory? Well, folks, because for instance, I am an academic and I keep receiving lots of emails per day of people who I don't know, offering me to publish my papers, offering me to publish my working papers, as long as I pay a fee. And that's not how science is done. Okay? Science is done in a different way. Science is done is I submit a paper to a journal, and the editor of this journal will check the quality of my paper. If he or she thinks that the paper is decent, he or she will send the paper to reviewers, right? And the reviewers or my peers, they will decide the paper is going to be peer reviewed, right? And they will decide whether my paper is publishable or not. Most papers, all decent journals, that's the procedure. And that's how we actually do in the department, right? You are going to write a paper. Your supervisor is going to take a look at your paper. He or she is going to suggest a mark, but your paper is going to be sent to an external examiner as well. Okay. Now I'm going to scroll down for the list, and I'm scrolling down the list of publishers. And you can see here, right, folks, there is a long list. And the list goes. And it's a long list. And you can see, folks, that, and it's a long list. And it keeps going. And there is an update. Okay. And if you go to the list, and I think you should take a look at those things because I think it's an important part of your education. The names are kind of obvious, right? The fifth publisher. Why not the seventh, but the fifth, right? And it's always very similar. Academia publishing, academia research, academia scholarly journals, academic. The name of the publishers are very similar because essentially that's how the business model works. There is academy publish. It's a kind of weird names. Acta Scientifica, right? Advanced journals. Which journal is not advanced, right? But there is also advanced journals and advanced journals, and so on and so forth. There is there are some names which are really there is allied academies and allied journals. Also, they like to say that they are American because that gives them some sort of oh, if something is American, it's really good, right? Antarctic journals, it's a great name, or Apex journal. There are all sorts of interesting names. Access journal. And folks, this is just the list of publishers. A publisher is, now there is the list of standalone journals. That's a second list. And you can see from there that it's a long list down, right? ACME Intellects. It's a great name. It's a long list of predatory journals. Okay. It's a long list. It's a long list. It's depressing, isn't it? It's a long list of charlatans in the market. It's a long list. It's a long list. It's a long list. Oh, there are some here. International Journal of Economics and Finance, International Journals of Economics and Research, International Journal of Economics, Commerce and Management, International Journal of Economics, Finance and Management, International, you see, they're all coming from the same publisher. The names are very, probably usually very similar. And the same happens to other journals in other sciences. And usually it's an international thing to try to make the point that the journal is international. So there are thousands of journals which start with the word international. Okay, you scroll and you scroll and you scroll, and the word international is still there. Okay, and international is still there, folks. Okay. So the list is long. It's a bit depressing. Those are the things that you have to avoid. You cannot download a paper from that stuff. You cannot base your dissertation on a journal. And this got actually a very interesting research search engine. It's quite good. Now to repack. So that's repack. That's a repository of papers, working papers, and articles or papers. And it's a reputable repository. It has been around for a long time, and it has a lot of information, really a lot of information. Let me just and they also have rankings. So if you go there, rankings. Shall we go there? Shall we go to rankings? Let's go to rankings, repack ideas rankings. And in here you can have all sorts of rankings by citation, by downloads, series and journals, by impact factors, authors, institutions, right? Shall we take a look at journals? Let's take a look at journals. Let's take a look at journals first, all years. Okay, and then we have a ranking of journals of, and then you have, let's say, the top 10, which is the top one is QJE, Quarterly Journal of Economics, which is published by Oxford University Press. And I don't have to tell you that Oxford University Press is not a predatory publisher. Right, it's OUP is one of the most important publishers in the world, right? And QJE is the journal of it's published by OUP, and QJE is the journal of Harvard University, right? Then there is JEL, which is the Journal of Economic Literature, which is a journal published by the American Economic Association. And as I said to you, the AEA is the most important association in our profession. Then there is Econometrica, which is the journal of the Econometric Society, which is also one of the most important societies in our profession. And then there is the Journal of Economic Growth, which is published by Springer. Springer is not a predatory publisher. Springer is a private publisher. Journal of Financial Economics, Elsevier, is also an important scientific publisher. And it's essentially, that's it, right, folks? It's OUP, it's Oxford University Press, it's MIT Press, Harvard University Press, Cambridge University Press, Springer, Elsevier. Those are the most important publishers in science, not only in economics. All right, Wiley as well. Journal of Economic Perspectives, AEA, Review of Financial Studies, American Economic Review, Journal of JP, Journal of Political Economy, published by the University of Chicago Press, and so on and so forth, right? And so on and so forth. If you grab a paper from the top 100 journal, you are probably in good hands. Okay, so if you become a professional economist, those names will become household names for you. Okay. So what about authors? Well, authors, you can do all, women, young, cohort, disease, region, country, US, region and state, research field. Okay. Top authors, you can do top authors by publication in all years, but you can do top authors by countries, by US state, by field. So let's assume that your field is, let's assume that your field is my field, right? It's development, it's here. And then you get top 10% authors in the field of development. Then we have Martin Ravalion from Georgetown University in DC. You have Robert Barrow from Harvard. You have Danny Roderick from Harvard. You have Banerjee from MIT. He got the Nobel a couple of years ago. You have Esther Duflo, also from the MIT. She got also the Nobel a couple of years ago. You have Asimoglu from the MIT. You have Angus Deaton, also Nobel laureate. You have William Easterly from NBR, and so on and so forth. You get household names. And so on and so forth, folks. You decide what your field of interest is, and then you start getting to know the names of those people. What else? Journals. So you can also do series and journals such as I mentioned to you, working paper series. Working paper series. So that you get to know working papers, important working paper series. And you see the usual names, Princeton, Berkeley, Berkeley again. So you get to know the names of the most important working paper series. That's the working papers that you should make use of. You get to know the names of journals, of good journals in our profession. So you start getting acquainted with those things. And above all, the Bill's list is not here anymore. You get familiar with the concept, with the idea that not all journals are the same. Okay. Zoom, links. What else that you can find here, folks, on my web page? First of all, let me stop sharing here. That's a good point for questions. Questions, comments. Questions and comments? All clear? And obviously, needless to say, okay, there is a question. I'll check that. Clear, and how do essay journals rank? Needless to say that there is a lot of. I'm throwing at you a lot of information. I'll deal with you, Stepan, in a couple of seconds. Obviously, needless to say that I'm throwing at you a lot of information, right? It's almost overwhelming. But I think it's paramount. It's really important that as we start building up these ideas, those things will become more and more obvious to you. Essay journals, so there is a question here, folks. How do essay journals rank? So how do you guys think that essay journals rank? So let's try to put this thing into context. Right? Science is an international endeavor, right? You are being taught by someone who was born in Brazil, educated in the United Kingdom, and who is now based in South Africa. You are also being educated by Matt, who is an American guy, educated in the US, and he is now based in South Africa. And if you go to American universities, if you go to the list of American academics, most of them are actually not Americans, people from all over the world, right? And if you go to UK universities, the top UK universities, you are going to also see that those academics, they are not necessarily British. They come from all over the world. So science, universities, labs, R&D is an international endeavor, right? So it really depends on globalization. So how, now it's a question, I'm going to throw back a question to you. How was South Africa until 1994 in terms of being open or closed to the rest of the planet? Very close, relatively close. No, I would stay with very closed, right? I would stick with very closed. I can try to make sense here of your relatively closed, because from the moment that Mandela was released from prison, the international community started becoming more well, it started accepting, South Africa started this process of reintegrating itself into the international community, right? So, but officially speaking, South Africa was a very closed economy, society until 1994. That implies that the South African universities were also very closed to what was happening in terms of science and R&D and progress outside South Africa. Even more so, the Afrikaans universities, right? In this case, Pretoria, Stellenbosch, and Free State, and also the one in Joburg, which is now the University of Johannesburg. Right? All the Afrikaans universities, they were extremely closed to the rest of the international community. The two English universities, three actually, UCT, Wits, and Natal, now KwaZulu-Natal, they were less closed to the international community because the UK and they kept the link with UK universities, right? And there is it's no wonder that the English-speaking universities in South Africa, they rank better, especially UCT and Wits. They rank pretty well in the international ranks of universities. So that said, I think it kind of answers your question, right, Stefan? Because South Africa was so close to the rest of the world, the South African journals, they also suffered a lot because science suffers with isolation. So the South African journals, they do not rank very well. Having said that, I think there is a huge effort in trying to make South African universities and journals and the academic community more and more integrated into the technological frontier. Globalization helps with that, okay? But it takes a long time. It takes a long time because the planet, the other countries are also moving. It's not only that, okay, now apartheid is over, we are back into the international community, our universities are going to bring people from other countries here who were trained in better universities, and everything is going to be okay. Yes, everything is going to be okay, but it takes a long time for everything to be okay. Does it make sense, folks? Okay. So now I kind of got sidetracked here because I don't know what I was actually talking about. Okay, thank you. Going back to the links on my webpage, I said I would show you some stuff on data sets. There is also links to a number of data sets. There is the website Human Progress, a lot of data in there, Our World in Data, the Gapminder. When I used to teach EKN 325, I used to use the Gapminder a lot. I don't know what's happening there now, but I used to show the students introduce the students to the Gapminder. There is the Penn World Table. It's a very good source for macro data. A number of things there that I think you should take a look. I will just open Our World in Data. It's an aggregator. You can find a lot of data. Before I continue, have you seen the World in Data, Our World in Data before? Yes or no?
No.
Never. And for those of you who did EKN 325 or who did your undergraduate degrees at UP, which data sets have you seen? Penn table. Thank you. Okay. Let me share my screen again. The Gapminder. Okay. World Bank mostly. Okay. Okay. So there is this one, folks, that I think is better because it's more modern. I think it's better than the Penn table, and even the World Bank is not bad, but the Penn table is very good for macro data. But I think the interface is not so user friendly. I think this one has a great interface and a lot of data. It's much bigger in scope than the Penn table, the Penn World table. And it's being used by a number of institutions, and it's being used in teaching by Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, Cambridge, MIT, Oxford. We should put the UP there as well, given that we are using that. And also by journals such as Science, Nature, and even by serious media such as the New York Times, the BBC, the Guardian, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. It doesn't really, and the Financial Times. It doesn't really get much better than that. I think the interface is fantastic. Let's go to articles by topic. I don't know, I didn't prepare this. Let's choose a variable that you guys are interested in. That's this one. Oh, actually, there was a question about, I don't know whether there is data here or not about divorce rates. Let's see. But you can see that there is a lot of, oh, let's see vaccination. Yeah, let's see vaccination. Vaccination, let's see all charts of vaccination. I wanted to see COVID-19 vaccination. Where is it? Let's go back here because it should be right at the beginning. There it is. So health, coronavirus, pandemic, COVID-19. Actually, I want to do something else. Let's do HIV/AIDS. Right. So there is data on HIV/AIDS. Very big thing in South Africa. South Africa made a number of policy mistakes there, folks, and that's what education is about, is to make sure that we do not repeat the same policy mistakes. As I said to you, apartheid was policy, was official government policy, but HIV/AIDS denialism was also policy, and it costs lives. So let's see here. Share of deaths of HIV/AIDS. Okay. So there is this variable here, share of deaths from HIV/AIDS in 2017. We have South Africa there. You just press, we have the map, It's other countries, they don't suffer so much anymore from HIV/AIDS, but you can see that sub-Saharan Africa still does. And it's essential. And you see this map is quite nice, right, folks? Because not only because it is nice, but you can actually download the map and the data. I'm not going to download those things, but you should explore. But you see that HIV/AIDS is still big in South Africa and Botswana. Okay, but given that we are in South Africa, let me put this here. We can just click there and we see the data, and you can add countries. I don't know, let's put Brazil there. Let's put Brazil there. And you can see how South Africa compares in terms of deaths because of HIV/AIDS with Brazil, right? Which is another developing country, which is another very unequal developing country, okay? And you can actually, you can share this map. You can get information about, you can get the table, you can get the map. The map you already have, but you can actually download the data, right? In Excel format or in Stata format or in R format, okay? So I think the interface is very friendly. You can download a lot of data. Let's try to see something else because we don't want to get too depressed by government incompetence. It's not only that, the trade unions, which can be difficult, but governments can also be difficult sometimes. This is COVID-19, coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19. They have an entire site about COVID-19. Let's take a look at vaccinations, because I think it's an important thing. It is coming, something is coming there. The map is getting ready. There we go. Cumulative COVID-19 vaccination doses administered per 100 people. We know by now, right, that Israel is at the top because they managed to buy vaccines a long time ago. But you can see here, folks, again, you can get the map of this map is really based on data. You can map your data into a map. So you can do that in Stata and in R. And I think Matt is going to show you how to do that. And I'm going to show you how to do that when I replicate my own paper with you, because I also have a map. There's the chart. You can have linear or logs. Linear sounds better. You can also put South Africa there, right? And see how South Africa is doing in terms of vaccination. You can download the actual data and so on and so forth. Okay. You can put just Africa, or you can put just South America. You can play a little bit, or just Europe. We know that in Europe, the UK started quite early as well, earlier than the European Union. And also North America, we followed the problems with the previous American president. The US is ahead of Canada and also Mexico. And there we go, Africa, and what's this country here? And Morocco seems to be ahead of South Africa in terms of vaccination. And here, oops, let me put the world again, and you can choose the countries that you want. Brazil has vaccinated more than South Africa, and it started before than South Africa. You can see that South Africa, although South Africa has started the vaccination process, it is very incipient as we speak, okay? Which is cumulative COVID-19 vaccination dose administered per 100 people. We can see the difference. And Brazil is not doing very well, folks, at all. We can perhaps put a different country there. Where is that you never find? We can put Israel there, and you see that compared to Israel, Brazil is also down there, and South Africa is really pretty flat. And as I said, you can actually you can download not only the graphs that you plot, but also the CSV file, which is an Excel file. So I find this data aggregator really nice, really nice. Stop sharing here. Questions about the data, about the data aggregator? I think that at the moment, I think it's the one I really like. In terms of just giving you a sort of preview of my website of things that you can find there. Also in the econometrics and software bit, you can find, remember I mentioned the book Art of Stats by Spiegel-Galter, and you can go there and you can find a lot, the data sets, a lot of information about getting started in Stata and R, which can be helpful to you from Princeton, really. You go there, as I said, this is not a course on econometrics, but you can get a lot of resources on how to get started on Stata and also R. Okay, what else I find interesting? Resources for graduate students, folks. I think I'm gonna discuss that next time because I don't want to jump too much ahead. And the professional associations that I mentioned, the American Economic Association, the Econometric Society, the RES, the EEA, and even the Economic Society of South Africa is here. Let me stop sharing and let me see where I was. And okay, we have to stop bullshit. Okay, folks. Let me stop sharing. The next topic would be the supervisor, but I think it's a good moment now for us to see if there are questions, comments, suggestions, complaints, even grievances. Anything? All clear up to this point? All clear. Okay. All clear, all clear. That's what I get here. Okay, folks, now the question is, let me share the screen. Sorry, I did something. Zoom, just trying to, okay. Like this. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Okay, folks, let's spend some time talking about the role of the supervisor, and then we stop for today. So as I said, at some point you'll be allocated a supervisor. One thing that I said to you, one thing is, first of all, you've been studying economics for at least 3 years. You already kind of you have seen lots of topics up to this point. You are seeing different topics now. And at some point you have to choose a topic in which to spend some time. And for that, you're going to be allocated a supervisor to, well, essentially to supervise you. To hopefully the supervisor will help you to avoid bullshit. What is the role of the supervisor? And I'm going to allocate you to your supervisor, right? Given your interests and supervisor's interests. So I'll try to match the best way possible. What is the role of this supervisor? It's to advise you on the feasibility of your topic. Remember, we spoke 2 hours ago about a topic being feasible, and in your case, is really whether there is data available, freely available or not. And also, sometimes the students come to us with all sorts of complicated ideas, and those ideas are sometimes good, yeah, very good, but they are not doable. Remember, we don't have a lot of time. We are working under extenuating circumstances. We have deadlines, and it's important that you not only that you graduate, but that you graduate well, right? That once you graduate from the University of Pretoria, you are a good ambassador. You really do a good job. This country needs good economists. What else? To provide with some general references in your topic, although it is expected that you already have in mind. Remember the 3 or 4 top papers written by the 3 or 4 leaders who publish in the 3 or 4 top journals in your topic. Remember REPAC. And to provide you with some references on the method. So if you are going to do something using aggregated time series for Zimbabwe, he will try to make sure that you are up to scratch on time series. To provide with comments on the final draft of your paper, it's not that every paragraph that you write, you are going to give this paragraph to your supervisor to read. That's not the point here, folks. The supervisor is there to supervise you, not to write your paper on your behalf. Yes, that's right, on the final draft. So your supervisor is going to read the final draft of your paper. Right? Obviously that you are going to discuss and you're going to talk to him over the whole process, but your supervisor is not supposed to read every single sentence or every single paragraph that you read, right? I'm sure they have other things to do. And that's not how it works. The whole point here is for you also to learn how to work independently, okay? What else is expected from you or from the supervisor? The role of the supervisor, counterfactual, putting everything upside down, or a placebo exercise, falsification exercise. The role of the supervisor is not to correct your grammar and vocabulary, right, at all. If a supervisor does that, it's not a good supervisor, right? The really important thing is to make sure that the format of your paper, that the structure of your paper is correct, and that your data analysis is correct, that you were able to download a data set, that you worked with your data set, that you did something with your data set. Economists are not supposed to correct grammar and vocabulary. Also, it's not to be available at your own convenience. They have other things to do. They have other courses to teach. They have papers to write. They have, I don't know what else they have to do. So that's why I said at the beginning, it's very important that you have a good level of coordination with your supervisor. Do not disappear, right? Always make sure that you have a good relationship. Do not disappear for 6 months and then come back because that's not going to work, right? It doesn't work like that. So make sure that you always have a good relationship with your supervisor, that your supervisor is aware of what you've been working on. Okay. Supervisor is not going to spend more than 8 hours, yes, 8 hours in total supervising you, which includes direct contact, nowadays by Zoom or Skype or Google Meet, whatever. Emails and reading of your final draft. Okay. Because again, I am giving you instructions on how to go about your paper, right? There is a lot of work happening here even today. And I'm giving you access to knowledge. I'm telling you essentially what to do and what not to do. And the point of this exercise is for you to do exactly what I said at the beginning. You have to find a topic. You have to find a feasible, doable topic. You have to find a data set. You have to study metrics with math to make sure that you can do something with your data set. And then you have to analyze. After you run your regressions, you have to analyze your results. Then you have to write up your paper. Okay. And you have to work independently. But there is a supervisor for you, right? To make sure that everything is proper. Recall your supervisor wants you to do well. So engage him, her with your ideas. As I said, make sure that do not disappear. Ask him, her to be honest in his, her comments. Bear in mind that your paper goes to an external examiner as well. And make sure that you have a transparent relationship with your supervisor with clear deadlines. Okay. I put there the link to the staff webpage where you can find, we can check their research interests, their qualifications, their contact details. But I will also at some point, because they provided me with topics that they would like to supervise. So I will provide you with those topics, and then we try to match in the best way possible your preferences with their preferences. Okay. I don't want to talk about, I don't want to start on the research proposal today. Questions, comments, suggestions? Come on, folks. All clear? Questions? Go ahead. Okay. For the students doing econometrics, do I understand correctly from the yearbook that our paper must have an econometrics focus? Yes, that's quite right. Yes. So that's a good question. Yes, for those of you who are doing metrics as your degree, you have to make sure that your paper has econometrics, and also you have to make sure that your supervisor does econometrics, because not all people in the department do econometrics. Okay, so again, you have to come up with, it's imperative really, that those of you doing metrics write a paper using metrics, right? And are supervised by someone who is clued up in econometrics. Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah. Thanks. More questions? More questions? No questions whatsoever? All clear? You guys are really clever. As it says on my back, you are the best class in the whole planet. Very good. All clear, all clear. Okay, folks. If everything is clear, there are no questions. All clear again. We see each other next next Thursday, next week. Yeah, there is a question. Question. No.
Amanu?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, I just wanted to ask regarding our referencing. So, because some people stick to the Harvard referencing and all those things. So, with you, do you have a specific way in which you want us to write the references?
References. I'm gonna show you JabRef, which is a software, right? I'm gonna show you, and then in this, no, I don't give a shit, really, right? As long as the references are proper, I don't give a shit. But I don't want to talk about references right now because we're going to talk about references at some point in the future. But I don't give a shit. Excuse me my French. Okay, some people, then we go back to the previous conversation about South African universities being disconnected from the rest of the planet for so long. Some people, they put a lot of emphasis on grammar, vocabulary, and references. My emphasis here is on content, right? Is on quality. But obviously that you guys have to manage your references properly. I put that in my notes. And at some point, I'm going to show you the JabRef software, which you can download. You can download actually right after this lecture. I have that in your laptop, and at some point we are going to and then you can choose the style you want, whether you want Harvard or Chicago or MIT or whatever, right? You can choose, but I don't give a shit about which style you choose, as long as it's proper. Okay, does it answer your question? Okay, more questions?
I just wanted to ask, with the topic for the research paper, right? Do we have to come up with the topic that we're going to talk about, or will there be guidance in some case from yourself or something? Or do we have to come up with the topic completely?
Okay, now at some point very soon, I will provide you guys with the topics that my colleagues are willing to supervise, right? And then hopefully the topics that they are willing to supervise will match your preferences as well. Okay. So yeah, I think it's a good idea for you to think about some topics that you fancy. And then when I provide you with the topics that they want to supervise, hopefully there will be a sort of, there will be some convergence between your choice and their choice. Okay. But my opinion is that you've been doing economics for 3 years, so you should have things that you fancy by now. Not complicated things. For instance, I'm going to use the example of EKN 325 again, because I designed that course and I taught that course for 9 years, and the person who teaches that course now was my PhD student. So that course, for instance, offers you a number of topics, right? You can do something using the Solo model. You can estimate, you can test the Solo model using South African data, or you can test the Romer model, or you can test, for instance, that social infrastructure topic that you saw in 325 using Sub-Saharan African data. You can gather the data. So that course, for instance, is just an example. I'm just using that as an example because I used to be familiar with that stuff. So that course offers you guys a number of topics in itself. Okay. And I'm sure other courses that you did, but I'm not familiar with them. Other courses that you did also offer you guys a number of topics. But ideally, actually, essentially, your topics must come, must make economic sense. And ideally, they come from courses that you have done in the past. The example of EKN 325 is quite telling. For instance, I remember, I don't know whether it's still being done in the same way that I did, but there was a topic on, and there was a question about that at some point earlier on. There was a topic on fertility rates, right? Fertility choices. So you can test that using African data, right? Africa is a continent with some countries that still have very high fertility rates, and other countries already very low fertility rates. South Africa, for instance, has very low fertility rates, which is a sign of some sort of structural transformation happening. So that can be tested. So that would give a good paper. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All good? All clear? 1, 2, 3. Okay, folks, then we see each other. We meet again next week. Remember, an hour before, the notes will be available, and the link, the Zoom link, will be available as well. Okay, folks, see you next week, and take care. Huh?